Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. In life, there are no rewards or punishments. One simply suffers the consequences of one's actions, be they good or be they bad. Those are the words of the late Muriel Eneas, past headmistress of St. Anne's High School. Unfortunately, those who engage in illicit activities give very little thought to their consequences or those results of their actions. That is where the armed forces of our country come in, securing the citizens and keeping up the law of the land. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the minister and ministry that enforces the consequences. Our topic is protecting the Bahamas, a matter of national security. And our guest is the Honorable Marvin Dames, the Minister of National Security. During this episode, we're going to take a look at the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and enforcing the law, protecting our borders. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
On is here. Rev Go Play. Go everywhere with Rev Go.
Is your loved one celebrating a birthday? Or maybe they're commemorating a special occasion and you don't know what to get them? Why not get them something custom made from Executive Printers? At Executive Printers, you can create personalized calendars, greeting cards, and even playing cards just for them. A one-of-a-kind gift. They can even do personalized cups, mugs, keychains, coasters, and notepads. So come in and place an order today. We are located on Jerome Avenue South, or log on to epbahamas.com for more info.
And welcome back to On the Record. Protecting the Bahamas, a matter of national security, is our topic tonight. And I said our guest is the Honorable Minister of National Security, Marvin Dames. Mr. Dames is the former Assistant Commissioner of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and, of course, now the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Mount Moriah. Welcome to On the Record, sir. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Jerome. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, crime is that one issue that never goes away. That is always a hot button issue. And depending on where we are in terms of our national psyche, it's either something that's very prevalent or just taking a slight backseat. You came to office during probably one of the worst spates of crime in the country ever. You said as a candidate at the time that you had a plan to lower the crime rate right in this very same studio. Right. When you were running for office. Right. You talked about that. As a former officer, I want to first of all get your assessment on the state of crime when you came into office, and from the perspective of a former law enforcement officer, what was that like?
Well, Jerome, what I can say is over the last decade or so, we have been at a very bad place in respect to crime. It may have been the worst decade in our history. We have had record-breaking homicides and armed robberies and shootings, break-ins, and the list goes on. So as a government, we understood that coming into office, this would be one of our foremost challenges. And so we have been working diligently as a government to find solutions to address these pressing issues. So we started right away understanding that coming in, once we would have assumed the government, that Bahamians expected to see almost immediate results. And so we had to introduce a short-term approach or short-term measures to address the incessant shootings and homicides and armed robberies. And we had to also look at medium-term and long-term measures that will, in the long term, address this and mitigate these issues that continue to occur.
Was it helpful having that background of law enforcement? I think a lot of people looked at that as a positive and touted that as, you know, he's come from a law enforcement background.
Yeah, absolutely. It's helpful, but understanding too that now I'm sitting in a different role, which is more a policy-driven role, which is certainly a plus, because I can now use my experience of once being an officer to assist my government, our government, in the formulation of policies that could assist us in the short, medium, and long term towards addressing this most serious issue.
The police commissioner this year announced that crime is down, and depending on who you ask, people may say, well, you know, yeah, I see things a little differently, or it's not as bad, depending on who you ask. But can you share with us at this point what have been some of the most successful initiatives that would have led to that pronouncement now that crime is down in some sense?
Yeah, so after saying that we would have had maybe over the last decade, the toughest decade in our history in respect to crime, I can say from that point that during the last quarter of 2017, we may have had one of the best quarters in a very, very long time. What
do you attribute to that specifically?
Well, a combination of things. You know, in the absence of any empirical data, one of the things that I can attribute to that is police efforts. I met with the police a few days ago at their Comstad meeting, and we had an open discussions on a number of things. And I said, you know, we talked about, you know, this formula and how we can, from the police perspective, contribute to a reduction. We all know, and we continue to say that, you know, crime is not solely a police problem. This is a social issue, and there are all sorts of variables that impact on whether the figures go up or whether they go down. But we talked about prevention, we talked about detection, and we talked about prosecutions. And what we need to be doing now is a heavy dose of prevention, followed by...
When you say prevention?
Meaning that we need to increase our level of visibility. Okay? We need to increase our outlay and our relationship with the community, keep engaged with the community, so that you will get information because it begins to build that level of trust between the police and the community. And so once we begin to do those things, begin to educate the public as to what to do and what not to do, and that's the primary role of policing.
One of the things I noticed, and it was last year, was a very heavy police presence on the streets. At night there were roadblocks, and I just saw an increase of patrol cars almost everywhere, particularly at nighttime. A very high police presence.
Right, and you can expect to see a lot more of that this year. We talked about, as a government before coming into office, that we want to increase, we would like to see the police increase their level of visibility. We want to police hotspots. We want to target prolific offenders, all right? And those are kind of short-term measures that can contribute to the decrease in crime. Is that the panacea to our problem? No, it isn't.
That's a today.
That's right, because as I said before, this is a social issue. And as a government, we understand that we need to be looking at it from a holistic perspective. What do I mean by that? We need to be focusing on education. We need to be focusing on employment, because we have a high rate of employment, especially among young people in this country. So we need to find wholesome activities to direct our young kids towards, and this is where the youth aspect comes into it. We need to work through social services to find these engagements issues, to work on conflict.
This is not something happening in isolation. I would suspect that, or it should be that, you know, you're talking to your cabinet colleagues about how education, social services, etc., are extending to help. But a couple of things. Now that, you know, the commissioner and yourself have pronounced that, you know, crime is down, should we as Bahamians begin to have more of a sense of safety? Because, you know, as it's always been said, the fear of crime sometimes is greater than the crime, greater than the rate of crime itself. And secondly, one of the things that continues to be an issue is the high murder rate.
Right.
So, twofold, you know, should we begin to relax and feel a little safer? And then how are you trying to address that high level of murder?
Well, again, when we look at the last quarter in 2017 compared to quarters previously, we would have seen a significant decrease, comparatively speaking, to past quarters over the last decade or so. And so there is some positive signs that the police are moving in the right direction. But again, I continue to speak to this, that this is solely not a police problem. Because at the end of the day, if we're not addressing those risk factors that are leading our young people along this path, the police will continue to have one of the most, if not the most difficult job in this country, because you're not going to solve every homicide. If we look throughout this region, many of our sisters nation have been fighting this issue for decades, and they continue to fight it. If you look in these developed countries, same thing. And so we have to, and as I said before, as a government, we continue to press along this, because at the beginning and coming into office, we had formed an interministerial committee of national security, AG's office, social services, youth, labor, education, to look at this from an holistic standpoint.
Two things. Okay, so we've increased the police presence. I think you started to allude to that. So what's next now? We sort of begin to see this curtailing, but so what can the public get to see next? Because things like home invasions, those you know, car thefts, things like that, those things continue to gnaw at the society.
They continue
those are really problematic. The murders, you know, yeah, they happen, but it is the smaller, unreported thing sometimes. I mean, there's even been, you know, accusations that, hey, it's underreporting because people have gotten to the point where they've stopped calling the police.
Well, of course. I mean, yeah. And so while those figures are down as well, and you touched on it, we have to continue to build trust and confidence with the community, all right? Because once you start doing that, then the fear level begin to slide downward. And that's what we have to work on now. So we're working on, from a policy standpoint, any number of other initiatives that will complement, for example, what the police may be doing to further assist in the reduction of crime. One of the things that we hope to do very shortly, and we announced this and we had articulated this, as a matter of fact, in our plan, in our manifesto, is that we intend to launch very shortly, and have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, a National Neighborhood Watch Council. And so what this proposed to do is to bring all of the communities together in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, together in unity, to work on a national plan to reduce crime in those respective communities. And so it's working hand in hand with the police, working hand in hand with other stakeholders, to effectively address this issue, because we understand and we continue to say that, you know, crime is not a police problem, but the question is, what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
And for far too long, we have been saying that, but we have not been seeing the end results of that, meaning that the relationship between the police and the community continue to remain distant.
Yes,
and so part of our objective as a government is to change that.
We'll certainly talk about some of the issues, I think, that continue to separate the police and the public a little further on down the shows. One of the things I wanted to comment on, though, is that neighborhood watch is so very important because those neighborhoods that are able to afford to have the retirees patrol and to have the meetings and to have, those are the neighborhoods with the higher income brackets, etc. But those over the hill communities where you are concerned with day-to-day living, and those are most times the hotspots.
You're absolutely correct, Jerome, and that's why moving in this direction will change that, because what we're doing is that we're not bringing the police together by themselves. We're bringing all of the key stakeholders in our country together in a very coordinated and organized way, and we will work with every community in New Providence and Grand Bahama and the Family Islands as needed towards setting up these neighborhood watch groups. But additionally, we will provide training to these various groups to prepare them. So how do we work with the police? What should we be looking out for? And this is part of the thrust, to bring CCTV into our communities, to look at training for young people, training for adults, and how to safeguard your community, to introduce patrols, to working in concert with the police in a very coordinated and organized way, and bringing about a level of communication with the police, so that when you see issues in your communities, that you can just pick up a radio set and key in on that liaison officer in that particular
Minister, we are at the point of good. I love the idea of training. I think it's an excellent idea. What we do not need is to begin to deputize some vigilantes.
No.
They want to be police. I just want to
but that is
really no more trade.
Right, absolutely. So you have these crime/neighborhood watch groups now.
Yeah.
And some of them are doing a fantastic job,
right.
And then others are fledgling.
Right.
And but we want to bring a level of coordination to guard against exactly what you're saying.
Minister, we are going to take our first break in the show. We will be back with more On the Record with our Minister of National Security right after this.
This segment is sponsored by Percy's Island Game.
We're gonna give you a check every week for a year. Percy's Pension Plan, Island Game.
Bro, you hear about Percy's Pension Plan?
Yeah, something about $1,000 a week for a year.
That's Percy's Pension Plan. You could win one of 5. All you gotta do is put $20 on your Island Game account, and you have a chance to win up to 52 times.
You know something, guys? I can need one of those Percy's Pension Plan, because with Island Game, it's surely a guarantee.
Island Game, we got you. Percy's Pension Plan. From the friends you can trust. If winning is a must, but play the game you know.
Boy, I ain't got no tension. I got Percy's Pension.
Count and ride this easy train at Percy's Island Game.
Yep. I got you.
I really appreciate you helping us out.
No problem, buddy.
Yeah, but thanks for helping us all.
Oh, I see you.
What happened, babe? What you mean?
Our news weekend has moved to 7:30.
Welcome back to more On the Record. Tonight we are discussing protecting the Bahamas, a matter of national security. Our guest, of course, is the Minister responsible for national security, the Honourable Marvin Dames. Before we get back to our guest and our discussions, Minister, our social media follower, Christy Miller, wants to know, how do you feel about hanging?
I've made it clear over and over and over. You know, I've been conditioned by the fact that I was a police officer, and I headed the Central Detective Unit for many years, and I've seen the good and the bad. But one of the things that continues to bother me, that if you arrest a person for homicide, they're remanded, then released on bail, then they commit another homicide. You know, the question is what do you do with a person like that? And then they commit another one. There are persons who are currently sitting at Her Majesty's prison, charged for multiple murders, all right? I have been on scenes where young kids, right, in the prime of their life, you know, just taken, their life just taken for no apparent reason. Innocent individuals.
So you support hanging?
Of course I do. It's on the books. You know, it's on the books. You know, but there are, I believe wholeheartedly that there are some persons out there, no matter what you do or how humane you are toward them, that they will never change. There are others, yes, who will.
You sit around the cabinet table. What, and this continues to be the question that the public, you know, asks over and over. Why are we allowing these impediments to carrying out capital punishment? If it is on the books, why can we not carry out the law of the land?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a valid question. It's not a simple. There's not a simple answer to that, because we know that just as there are persons who are for it, there are persons who are against it, and there are persons who are willing to fight to the very end. There are persons who will support even in the absence of funds, but they believe in this cause. And we have to understand too that the Bahamas is not a country unto itself. All right, there are conventions, there are all sorts of other variables that really impact on whether these things happen today or whether they will ever happen again.
I understand.
So it's not. There is not an easy answer to this.
Minister,
this
I hear you. There is no easy answer, but it's a difficult thing to say when you have a loved one lying in a coffin. Or you're putting them down on the ground, or a young child, and that, you know, that is the point. And I think we've heard these arguments over and over. The public, you know,
but
I hear you. But then when my brother's dead,
listen,
in the coffin, I ain't trying to hear that.
No, but I agree with you, and I say this, that we as a government will continue to honor the laws of this country, and we will continue to press, all right, as much as possible to see that these laws are carried out.
I take your word on that, and you know, we'll watch and see, and hopefully if this is the law, then let's move forward with the law. If not, let's amend the law and find some other avenue. Moving forward, the ushering in of the new F&M administration saw several former PLP cabinet members hauled before the courts and charged for various offences related to stealing. Your ministry was involved with this. Were these ongoing investigations prior to the administration coming to office, or was this just done as a result of your administration coming in and the investigations beginning at that point?
No, these were not ongoing investigations prior to, and I don't want to get into the facts of these matters, because as you are fully aware, they're before the courts. But one thing that we said, and our leader, the Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Hubert Minnis, wanted the public to know that corruption will be one of the key planks of of our administration.
Corruption or anti-corruption?
Well, anti-corruption. Anti-corruption will be one of the key planks of our administration. And so that was a message that was sent out there. These reports and these matters that would have been investigated were reported to the police. The police had an obligation to investigate, and working in concert with the Director of Public Prosecutions at the Attorney General's office, they determined at the end of their investigations that there was sufficient evidence to proceed against the individuals involved, and that they did. So we have to now see how these matters bear out in court.
At the beginning of the term, there was almost a rush. There was all of this fervor around who would be prosecuted. Everything seems to have stopped. Will we see more?
Well, there are any number of investigations ongoing by the police. You know, at the end of the day, we don't want to go on a witch hunt. We want to ensure that the police are carrying out their mandate, that they're investigating these matters, and at the end of the day, they may decide that, you know, working with the Director of Public Prosecutions at the Office of the Attorney General, that there isn't sufficient evidence to proceed against, then we have to honor that. If they decide that there is sufficient, then those who are responsible or culpable will be put before the court.
And we need us to do a little introspection now with the police force itself. You know, over the past few months, there have been numerous videos of officers engaging in all kinds of activities unbecoming of an officer, you know, drinking in uniform, buying liquor, cursing in these videos. And even the measures taken, the public felt were not harsh enough, or they should have been dismissed from the force for that activity. What has been done since that? You know, because of course, when it's fresh, there's always lots being said.
Right.
Something happens, and then it's done. And I hasten to say, I don't think these activities have stopped. But I'm just curious as to, you know, from your perspective, what is being done now to bring a little bit more honor and proper behavior to the police officers? You know, you fellas, you're all enforcing the law, and to be this kind of activity really erodes at the work of the police force.
Yeah, this is near and dear to me. I believe that once an individual takes an oath to become a law enforcement officer, he or she has to live up to that oath. I, while serving in the force, had the responsibility for overseeing discipline in the organization, and I took that very, very seriously. This is the era that we're living in today. The era of social media, where whatever you do, wherever it is, in an instant, it can be publicized throughout the country, across the globe. Okay, so this is the era that we're living in, and I said that the police is a microcosm of our community. Now, after having said that, you know, we understand that we have to take an aggressive approach to cleaning up our organizations, our law enforcement organizations. This is not something that's solely a Royal Bahamas Police Force thing. This is something that we see across the globe, right? Level of corruption in organization. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're now working towards introducing body cams for police officers. We're looking at our recruitment, and so in a big way, we're at the tail end of completing a manpower audit of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the first in its kind, and as far as I can remember. And this audit would take a look at any number of things. And one of the things that we continue to focus on is recruitment and training for law enforcement officers, not only in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, but the Defense Force and the correctional services, because we understand that whenever an individual in uniform breaches the public trust, it tarnishes the organization because people begin to use a brush and paint everybody.
All of them are like
and so we can't afford to allow that to happen. Now, under the F&M administration, the previous F&M administration, they had introduced an inspectorate whose job it was to review all of the complaints made against police officers and to be that eye for the public. And these were individuals who were from society and who were respected.
And one connected to the
right,
police. Okay.
Right. But what has happened to that inspectorate is that it hasn't been functioning for many years now. And one of the things that we intend to do is to bring that back.
One of the things
that's extremely important.
One of the issues the force faces is the level of accusations of police brutality, and this isn't something that is made up, and not just as a plea in court or something. You see fellas going to court limping. You can physically see the injury sometimes of these individuals being taken to court. And while, you know, like my mother used to say, if you with the crows had not been found, it would have been all safe and sound. But that is a real concern. That is a real concern. And sometimes it affects the outcome of a case.
Absolutely. And so we have measures in place to protect individuals in custody.
Like?
Okay. So there is a detention form that ought to track an individual's movement from the minute that he is arrested to the time he goes to court.
So what then happens? Okay, what then happens when you don't beat me to a pulp and I then limp to court? What happens? What happens to the police?
There is, and I'm not condoning police officers who go rogue, because we have to deal with them. On the flip side of that too, that there have been, and I can tell you because I've been there, any number of incidents where persons would have come and reported police officers.
I'm just going to pause you just for a minute. We've got to take a quick break. We've got to take a quick break. We'll pick it up. Yeah, we'll pick it up, Minister. We got to take a quick break, but we're gonna pick up after this break. So stay with us. We're back right after this.
This is an exciting time. We're launching a new and amazing app. It's all about the customer experience, and this has actually been in play for quite a while now in terms of the development and getting it ready for this moment.
We've set out a very clear agenda in Alive that the smartphone device, you know, is going to become the centre of everybody's life.
All you have to do is be a customer of ours, and you can get this app and you can enjoy and have access to our network to be able to watch and view a number of channels, as much as 51 channels.
The RevGo product, you know, building on the great platform that Cable Bahamas and Rev have put down over many years, is the start of that journey to people truly living their life through their smartphone.
And it's going to make the experience more enjoyable, more easier for people to access channels. So we can't wait to get to phase 2 to launch that to our customers as well.
And it's fantastic that the Rev team has brought this to life so quickly in Alive's evolution.
Live the HBO Go experience. Online service with HBO's most selected content at your fingertips. Obtain the HBO Max package now and get the 3rd month free and start enjoying from any mobile or computer all episodes of your best series, blockbusters, and so much more. Make all the content from HBO yours. HBO Go is HBO wherever you want. Sign up for HBO from Rev and be entered to win an all-expense-paid trip for 2 to Hollywood to visit your favorite HBO set.
Welcome back to On the Record. Tonight we are talking to the Minister responsible for national security. Minister, as we went to that break, we really were in the throes of a discussion about this whole issue of police brutality. Right. And, you know, I still stand by, you see the evidence of it all the time. How do you address that? How do you justify that? You've got a man who was beaten in police custody.
Well, we said wherever we find an officer going contrary to what his duties require, he or she is often dealt with. There are mechanisms in place.
How come the public doesn't hear about that?
To deal with that. Well, we tell you, there is a complaints unit. I spoke earlier about the independent body whose responsibility is to review many of these matters to ensure that there is a level of independence and balance in these investigations. We have systems within the organization. Whenever an individual is arrested, there is a detention record. That detention record makes it to court. It has to track that individual's movement from the moment he's arrested to the time he goes to court. What he eats, you know, where he's located within the organization, whether he's at police station at South or whether he's at Central. And each supervisor or divisional commander has a responsibility to ensure that that record is properly maintained. If it is not, and an individual makes a complaint, then that can be the difference of that individual walking or otherwise. So we're not going to condone the action of a rogue police officer. We have systems in place to deal with that. On the reverse side, we have had any number of complaints made to the police about the behavior of officers, the bad behavior of officers, or the abuse of officers, only to find out that many of these complaints were false. And so on one side, we have to ensure that the public, right, is not being abused by police officers. And on the other side, we have to ensure that the police officers are not being lied on.
Well, you know, I'll just say this, and we're going to move into another area. And I say it to officers all the time, I'm not a criminal, so don't talk to me like one.
Right.
And that is an issue that many members of the public have. If you pull me over for something, then that's fine. I accept that. But do not treat me like a criminal if I have not committed any criminal act or have not behaved as such. And that creates animosity. Yeah. You can curse at me and rough me up. People are going to respond.
Well, and it's a very valid point. We understand that these are the issues that we have to deal with if we're going to build the public's trust.
And trust is a very important issue,
And
yes.
so what you will see coming up very shortly as a result of this manpower audit and as a result of the focus that we will begin to place in a very, very big way on training, not only training of police officers, but law enforcement officers as a whole, because we have to continue to drive to move these agencies to the highest level of professionalism. And that is part of our government's focus.
Looking forward to it, sir. We're going to switch the discussion a little because under your purview as minister as well is also protection of our borders. As predicted, there has been a recent and frequent intervention of craft bringing large numbers of Haitian nationals to our shores. Are we equipped enough when it comes to manpower and even these vessels to be able to deal with this tide? And, you know, some days it seems they're coming one right behind the other. But are we equipped on the manpower and even on the equipment side to deal with this continuing influx?
We're also carrying out a manpower audit of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force to determine just that question, are we equipped enough? You will often hear the leaders of these agencies say, well, we need more men, right? We need more women. But the question is, what are you basing that on? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can take a look at your organization, you can take a look at the challenges and say, well, we're somewhat overwhelmed. And that is why these manpower studies, audits are so important. Now, let's get to the point of policing our borders. Yes, we had that incident earlier in the year, but law enforcement is a very dynamic business, and we don't control whether people decide to come or not, right? So, but we have to ensure that we have the right intelligence in place, that we have the right strategy in place, that we have the right individuals in place, meaning that they're capable and they're competent, right, to protect our borders. And we are doing a lot of work behind the scenes to ensure that we not only to ensure that we recruit the brightest and the best, to ensure that they're well trained, to ensure that they're able to protect our borders and protect our sovereignty, to ensure that they are capable all around. You can buy all the assets in the world, all the boats and ships and everything else. If we don't have the right people there, then we have a problem. But we have a very capable Royal Bahamas Defense Force, who this government has the utmost confidence in. All right. From time to time, yeah, there are issues, but there are issues in every organization, and so we have to continue to work on those issues to ensure that we're moving in the right direction.
The Defense Force sometimes feels that they don't get the same level of attention that the police will get in terms of pay and all kinds of other things. And there's a disparity, as if the Defense Force is an afterthought when they really are a critical part of the protection of this country.
Well, we're a new government, and so I can't speak to what happened in the past, but I can speak to the present. And the way we're moving forward is that we're moving forward collectively as a grouping. We're looking at law enforcement as law enforcement.
So they'll be on the same level, so the police, defense force on the same level?
Well, they're all on the same level as far as I'm concerned. They all have their own mandate and responsibility. And I have met with the leaders of all of these agencies, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the correction services. And we're working with all of them to ensure that they carry out their mandate.
Are they paid the same?
Yeah. Yeah.
So officers who have similar rankings, etc., they're all paid the same?
They're almost,
and even when it comes to overtime and things of that nature as well?
When it comes to overtime? Well, overtime is, none of these agencies really get overtime. You know, that issue came up last, in 2016, when the police actually found themselves working these really obscene hours. And they were assured that they would be paid overtime. Any
plans to increase salaries of these law enforcement officers?
Well, we're at a place in this country today where we're trying to get our economy on track. Of course, you would have you continue to hear daily that we have a lot of work to do to try and restart our economy, to try and get businesses back, to try and encourage to get people back to work. And so there's a lot of work to do.
So that's a no.
There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
That's not a discussion for today,
okay.
but it could be sometime later.
Okay. When we talk about protecting our borders and border patrol, you know, you're looking at obviously the people who are arriving legitimately, the airports and seaports, and dealing with that issue. But and of course you have the interception of the illegal immigrants who are coming on the boats. But what about those millionaires who ride in on the huge yachts and dock here, who may be, you know, running from prosecution in other countries, or, you know, smuggling all kinds of things? And, you know, you hear about guns, and, you know, guns don't come to the airport. Yeah, they come in somewhere, but they don't. Well, shouldn't be. But, you know, we don't manufacture guns in the Bahamas. Let me just say that.
Not.
So they're coming in somehow.
Of course.
And that is always a huge concern. But, you know, is the same level of scrutiny being put on the folks who are riding in those big yachts, or the luxury boats, or even the cruise ships, and you know, the containers that are coming in? Is the same level of scrutiny being put on them as the you know, the Haitian boats that are coming in?
We don't care who you are. If you break the laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, there are consequences.
Yeah, you're talking about breaking the law, but are you trying to catch these people on the way? You have to be caught in order to break the law, right?
That's exactly my point. And that's one of the reasons why we're moving to pass legislation all right, for a national intelligence agency, because this agency will have that reach, all right, to focus on where the breaches are, to identify the persons involved, and to ensure that those individuals are exposed and brought to justice. So we don't care if you have $1 or $1 million. Doesn't make any difference to us, all right? We have a job to do. We have a country to protect. And if there are persons who are out there, no matter where they are, whether they're out east or west, north or south, if there are persons out there who are putting the country at risk and who are putting Bahamians at risk, then we will seek them out wherever they are. So it doesn't matter to us.
So it doesn't matter if you have $1 or $1 million.
Doesn't matter. Not
Good
at
to
all.
know. Good to know. Right? That's good news. So we have some more questions to get to. Some of our social media followers have some questions relative to poaching. We're going to take those, as well as talk about the armed forces a little bit more when we come back. Stay with us. Our final segment, On the Record, continues right after this.
We're gonna give you a check every week for a year. Percy's Pension Plan, Island Game.
Bro, you hear about Percy's pension plan?
Yeah, something about $1,000 a week for a year.
That's Percy's pension plan. You could win one of 5. All you gotta do is put $20 on your Island Game account, and you have a chance to win up to 52 times.
You know something, guys? I can need one of those Percy's pension plan, because with Island Game, it's surely a guarantee.
Dream big, we will help you live it. Percy's Pension Plan, Island Game, we got you. Percy's Pension Plan, from the friends you can trust. If winning is a must, don't play the game you know.
Oi, I ain't got no tension, I got Percy's pension.
Count and ride this easy train at Percy's Island Game.
Rev Go Play, the new mobile app that delivers your favorite live streaming TV channels, is here, and it's free to all Rev TV subscribers. Download the app from the Bahamas iOS App Store or Google Play Store. Launch the app and log in with your My Account email address and password. The TV Everywhere revolution you've been waiting on is here. Rev Go Play. Go everywhere with Rev Go.
Sign up for Rev Go Play and win a trip to the 2018 Sobe Food and Wine Festival.
Welcome back. We are talking to the Minister of National Security, the Honourable Marvin Dames. Our topic, protecting the Bahamas. A matter of national security, has led us to discussions so far on the downturn of crime, prosecuting those in high places. Now we are talking about our borders and upgrading our armed forces. Before we continue with the discussion, we have a question from Rock Sounder, who asks, regarding the Royal Bahamas Defence Force, what actually happens to foreign boats caught illegally fishing? Are they returned to poachers upon their exit from the Bahamas? And how does the minister intend on sending a strong message to these poachers?
My answer to that is this. You know, we continue to meet with our heads of the law enforcement agencies, and in this case that falls under the remit primarily of the Royal Bahamas Defence Force. There is a strategy to deal with poachers, and they have been executing that strategy. We continue to look at our strategies over periods of time and to determine whether they are effective or not, or whether we need to improve on them. And so I meet frequently with the heads of these law enforcement agencies as they update me on the execution of their strategies and whether they are adhering to the policies laid down by government. As far as these boats are concerned, many of them are not seaworthy, and at the end of the day they're sunk. But at the end of the day, if an individual is charged, then some determination is made as to what happens to the boat. If it's seaworthy, then it could be auctioned off. But for the most part, based on my conversations with those persons in the field, and many of them are not, and a lot of them are eventually sunk.
But if they aren't, but they are not given back to the poachers.
They're not. Oh, absolutely
okay.
not.
Okay. I think that was the crux of the question.
Absolutely
what happens to the
not.
boats? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So, the consequences of most crimes involve imprisonment. How does our correctional facility measure up to those around the region? I want to start there, and then, you know, I always say that we don't judge ourselves by, you know, what the region does. We look to the north all the time as our barometer. But certainly, you know, from your perspective, how are we measuring up in terms of our correctional facility?
Well, you know, I don't know how we measure up with the rest of the region. But what I would say is that we have a lot of work to do. We have embarked on that process because we know exactly what it is that we need to do and where it is that we're going. So we're trying to move our correctional agency from being punitive to more correctional. At present,
explain that.
Punitive right now as the president, you go to jail, you serve time, then you're released. But we're saying now we want to rehabilitate those persons as much as possible, that when they enter prison, that there is a process that will lead towards rehabilitation where they can be properly reintegrated into society. I think that it works well for all of us. You know, the problem that we get ourselves into is that once a person is charged and incarcerated, they carry that stigma for the rest of their lives, and they're alienated, and sometimes that is not good for them or society as a whole.
You can't move forward in your life because you have this looming over your head.
So we want to. So it is our approach to provide an opportunity for persons when they're incarcerated to go through a process of rehabilitation with an opportunity to be properly reintegrated back into society. And this is how it's been done in many of the developed world.
We've talked about the training needed for the police force and also the training for the defense force, but are the officers in the correctional facilities going to be trained as well to deal with rehabilitation? Because as you would have said, it's one thing to incarcerate, and I can keep you locked up, but, you know, getting your officers now to understand how rehabilitation works and wanting to do that, because you're dealing with this guy behind bars every day. I mean, is there a real desire to rehabilitate him?
Yeah, so you know, many of these agencies will tell you that they do training every day. One of the problems that we face in our country is that, you know, it's not only in the law enforcement agencies, in other arms of government, everybody wants to travel and go away and do a little course here and do a course there, and they come back and say, I've been on a course. One of the things that we have to get better at is developing structures and systems, all right? And so, because that is important if you're going to move toward a higher level of professionalism, all right? And so that is why we said, and I had a meeting last night with my team, and I said that, you know, one of what I would hope that at the end of the day, one of our legacy would be, right, is how do we continue to move these agencies along a path of professionalism, higher level of professionalism. And the only way that we can do that is that we have to recruit better and we have to train, and train.
I am glad you said recruit, because a lot of times these agencies are not attractive. You know, you would have completed your high school education and even, let's say, a college degree. But what is there to attract me at that point in my life to joining a police force, a defense force, or even a correctional facility?
Oh, we have thousands of applicants to these organizations, and many
Minister,
of them.
I don't mean thousands of people looking for a job.
That's different. Let me finish my point.
I can't do nothing else, so let me see if I get on the police
totally
force.
understand what you're saying, but let me finish my point. And a lot of these persons, you'd be surprised, are college students, okay? I contend that is the way, you know, we have to look closer at how we select individuals for the organization. Yes, one can always say, or would always say that maybe we need to increase the level of pay, maybe we need to look at ways to attract, and we will be doing that.
I was saying,
because
that's no maybe, sir.
That's all a part of it. But what I'm saying now, in the current environment, we're getting the applicants, all right? What we need to be doing now, and better, and we're working on that, because as I said before, you know, we want to move towards a higher level of professionalism. I want to know that within the next year or two, you know, that we're getting reports of the commissioner or the commodore or the commissioner of prison getting reports and say, man, you really have some professional officers. We have to change the perception.
What happens to the college-educated officers? Are they recruits? Are they taken into the force?
Well, as I said before,
it doesn't appear so.
We are taking a closer look at recruitment in all of these agencies. You would have heard in the past me speak to, and other people speak to, that, you know, sometimes you wonder how and who we're recruiting.
That is a very valid question. How did some of these people get onto the force?
We have to be more transparent, okay? And we have to ensure that the right individuals are being recruited, because at the end of the day, we're talking about national security.
So let me ask you this, sir. You know, and this happens, I'm not going to say that this happens just within your ministry, but we have a culture where, you know, my MP or my minister or somebody, I go to him or her for a job and they send me to the police force, the defense force, and you know, word comes down, oh, the minister sent this or the MP sent that person. And it's almost as if they are shoo into the job.
That has been a part of the problem.
Have we stopped it?
I would have spoken to that on any number of occasions, but as long as I am minister, right, and this government has committed itself to it, as long as I am minister, we're going to allow the Commissioner of Police, the Commodore of the Defense Force, and the Commissioner of Prisons to do their job. Because at the end of the day, what we want to ensure is that our policies are being adhered to, and these agencies are developing and bringing about effective strategies to properly and effectively carry out their mandate. That's our concern.
So no more minister send me or my MP send me. That's stopped.
No.
That's stopped.
No.
Okay.
No. Well, I should say it's not happening. It is not happening. And we are putting, as I said before, we are putting in place, right, measures to ensure that there are no interference and that we are recruiting the brightest and best for these organizations.
Minister, I will hold you to that. That's a very tall order.
Well, we just had 100+ recruits for the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. All right.
Okay.
You're free to call the Commodore and ask him how were those individuals selected.
Get him on the show.
All we want to do is to ensure that these agencies are delivering. Okay, it's from our perspective. It's all about accountability, professionalism, and accountability, and that the Bahamian people are getting value. Right? That's what we want.
That brings me to a point that I would have skipped over, but I was waiting on the right time to bring it up. You have a new police commissioner, Commissioner Anthony Ferguson, who has a stellar career in the force. And I mean, right. I remember when he started out, but you know, I knew and followed his career moving up through the ranks, and I think that's a testament, and that's a good thing, because it shows people that you know, and I'm sure it's not the first time. It shows though that if you work hard at what you do and you're good, you can rise to the top. So I applaud that. But in that transition, it left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth, if I can use that term, as to what happened to now former Commissioner Greenslade. It's just, he seemed to have disappeared and there was nothing going on, and then all of a sudden, there's an announcement of a new commissioner, and it was almost as if there was this shroud of secrecy. I know you've addressed it publicly, but how do you fix that going forward? I mean, what happened, and why is it that there was almost this suspended state of animation, so to speak? You didn't know what was happening, you didn't hear from the commissioner, you didn't see him, he was on leave, he was on vacation. what happened and how do you fix that going forward so that doesn't happen?
Shroud of secrecy. I don't
Minister,
know.
when people do not see or hear from the commissioner
you
for weeks and weeks, and you're asking what happened, and all you keep hearing is, "Oh, he's on leave." Well, you know.
Well, he spoke to it, and sometimes there is a process that we all.
So why
must,
not announce this process at the beginning? But we are in the process of finding a new commissioner. This is what should happen.
No. But there should not have been a shroud of secrecy, because if you decide then that you want to take leave, all right, and you are entitled to leave. So
he decided to take leave.
Of course, he took leave. He explained that. He made that clear. But after having said that, because I don't want to make it, I mean that he spoke openly, and I thought very clearly on that issue, and so I don't want to rehash that for any reason, because
my question is just how do we fix going
forward? So
what has happened?
Let's move on. How do we fix it? And so one of the things that we continue to experience, not only in the law enforcement agencies, but throughout the public services, this whole business of succession planning. All right. We have to be transparent about it, because we're all just passing through an organization. We cannot develop or create systems where individuals believe that they're there for life. Okay? And so as a government, we now have a responsibility, not only in these agencies, but throughout the service, to create clear paths for individuals entering the service. There's so many of our young people who are waiting to be promoted, who are looking for opportunities, but they're confused because there is the level of transparency is not there. And so what we're hoping to do within these agencies is create a level of transparency, all right, where people will get a clear view as to where they sit or stand, right, and where they can end up if they do certain things.
I just implore you to do one thing, and this, as we're going to move from here to the final question, is that whatever you put in place, and I hope and pray that that level of transparency continues during an election year. Because it seems that we throw all protocols and what's supposed to happen out the window when it's election time.
Well,
that's my only takeaway for you.
I can't speak to the past.
Okay.
I can only speak to what this government is doing.
Forward.
And I'm happy to say at this stage that I'm proud to be a member of this government led by our current leader, the Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis.
So we are coming to the end of our show, and I do want to present you with a final question. But, you know, as you look down the road, 3-4 years from now, if it is that you are to remain within this ministry, because you do serve really at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. But when you look back, or once you have an opportunity to look back, what are some of the critical or key things that you would like to look back on and say, these are my accomplishments as minister within this term or tenure? What are those key things that you would like to be able to look back and be proud of and be able to tout?
Well, as I said before, you know, it's interesting because I mentioned earlier about the meeting I had with my team last night. And we were talking about planning for 2018. So what will be some of the things that we hope to achieve during this year? And when we got to the Royal Bahamas Police Force and the Defense Force and the prison, you know, these agencies, I said, listen, you know, one of the things, you know, that I would like to see us achieve is that we have to move these organizations to a greater level of professionalism. And what does that mean? We have to focus on recruiting quality individuals. We have to put a great deal of emphasis on training, okay, because training is the key, right? But not only that, as we provide the tools for these officers to execute, we have to ensure that the public, the community to which we serve, clearly understand what it is that we're doing and what role they can play, because there is a role for the community. It can't be the police all by themselves. And what we want to do is we want to create a unified and a coordinated law enforcement machinery. And so what do I mean by that? We want to break down the silos that currently exist between agencies to ensure that we are maximizing their output. And in a country as small as the Bahamas, there is no need for individuals to believe that they assume a position and now they're the king and they don't have to pay homage to the people of this nation.
Good point. Sir, with that, we want to say thank you for agreeing to come on the show. I asked you a couple of weeks ago whether you'd agree to come on, and you said you would, and you kept your word, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, we're the people's government, and we're not going to run from the people.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you know, normally we have more than one guest on the show, but I thought this time, because of the magnitude of the ministry, and because there's so much to discuss, we wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to everything. And thank you so very much.
Well, thanks for having me, Jerome.
We certainly will. We'll invite you back on. You know, you made some promises.
I'm open.
Yeah, we made some promises. We can make sure you keep those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Best of luck to you as well.
Thank you so much.
So we hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to the Honorable Marvin Dames, the Minister of National Security, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for watching. Be sure and join us for more On the Record next week. Same time, same place. Once again, I'm Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time.